Everyone says hire slow, fire fast. We say hiring is the fastest way to go broke when you're small.
Wait, how are you supposed to grow without hiring?
You don't hire, you trade equity with people who actually give a shit.
So by the end of this video, you're going to know why traditional hiring breaks small companies, how equity partnerships grossly outperform employees 10 to 1, and the new way that developers and creators can scale without payroll.
First, the data on why early hires fail, then why equity partnerships win long term, and finally, a 3-step play to find your first equity partner instead of another freelancer.
Tell us about the hiring illusion, Tom.
So, most founders think hiring is progress. It's not, it's overhead. According to MicroConf, the top mistakes founders make when hiring early are hiring before PMF, product market fit, hiring generalists with no stake in success, and most of them cloak themselves as specialists, just from my experience, and then burning runway on poor cultural fits. So the reality is you hire someone at $5K a month, hoping they'll care. They won't. You're their fourth client. And on average, from the research we've seen, founders waste an average of 5 to 7 months and 30% of runway replacing failed early hires. You're now doing two things: setting money on fire and killing momentum.
So how do big companies do it then? Because they hire.
Well, big companies can afford those mistakes. You can't. Early hiring equals buying labor, but equity partnerships equal buying commitment. So if they're not invested, they're not staying up at midnight solving bugs, rewriting funnels, and worrying about your company. They're clocking out at 5 p.m., moving out to the next gig, going back on resume.com, the regular thing.
Looking for the next job on LinkedIn. So we have a friend who's actually a developer as well, and he actually manages other developers too. So for one particular project, he hired a professional project manager to deal with to do two things: to communicate with the client about the development cycle, and also to actually project manage the project to completion, right? So deliver the actual app. And this guy spent 3 months doing meetings, pushing features, liaising with the client, and I think it was $25,000, $30,000 later or something, nothing had moved. Nothing had actually been done. It was just 3 months of busy management work without anything being shipped. So this particular friend, after this, he said, hiring sucks, especially for a small business. And in his next project, what he did was he very intelligently found 2 equity partners who were not developers. He found 2 equity partners who were salespeople. And we talk a lot about influencers. Well, salespeople is kind of the old version of influencers, right? And that business to this very day still runs, still delivers a nice, clean 6-figure plus per partner every single year, month on month. And it's probably going to run till the end of time. And it's actually, I won't give away the industry or the niche. It's actually a super, super, super simple business. It's not like developers who looked at it would be like, I could code this in like half a day, But hey, that is the power of equity partners. And it keeps growing because 2 other guys have skin in the game. They have a stake in the business, and they are up until midnight fielding sales calls. When there's a client problem, they go to the client's site and they help the client out. You would never expect a $5,000 a month freelancer to do that for you.
Just going back to project managers, I've had 2 that I fired, and they were very interesting. One project manager, she was an earlier hire at one of my companies. She was very quickly outskilled by the next employees. And when she could no longer bring any value to the team, she brought drama because she thought that's the thing that's going to make her important, and started messing up the dynamics of the team. And I fired her for that. The second one, she was a bit of this not pushing anything forward, but managing things. And, one day I just sit at one of those like daily huddles. And I'm like, well, what do you actually do? Because you don't know what's happening at the company. I can see that already. You don't know anything technical. You don't know anything about funnels. You don't know anything about graphics. You're a project manager with experience, but I'm curious, what do you manage here, right? And she's like, oh, you see these 2 employees? I'm like, yeah. They argue with each other, so I manage them. They were all fired, by the way, but just letting you know what these people do when you're not watching, okay? So let's move on to, if employees don't work, what does?
When someone owns a piece of the pie, like we talked about, they act like a co-founder. They have skin in the game. Right. Like the Harvard Business Review found that startups with distributed equity among early contributors are 3 times more likely to reach profitability before outside funding. And we've talked before how startup advice, VC funding advice doesn't always apply to smaller businesses, but in this case, it's pre-funding. It actually does. And why does this happen? It's because aligned incentives will beat out management every time.
Yeah, most founders avoid giving equity because they fear losing control, which is normal. Like you built a company, it's your baby. But the reality is you are not losing control. If you structure this correctly with the right people, you are gaining capacity. So the one thing I can tell you is just make sure each person is in their own lane. So the developer owns the software, influencer owns the distribution. And yeah, 2 developers as co-founders, that's dumb. 2 creators, so these are like simple things. But when you have different skill sets and you own each one, think of it this way, right? So let's say you're a developer, you partner with a creator. Creator brings 50,000 people that follow her. The product hits, let's say, 30,000 per month in 6 months. You both own 50%. She did all the marketing. You're doing all the maintenance of the tool, adding features. You both own 50%. Someone makes an offer, you cash out. There's not really a downside to it.
Yeah. So that one partnership is going to outperform 5 full-time hires in terms of speed, in terms of revenue, and in terms of exit potential. And you don't have to manage payroll. You don't have to manage HR drama. You don't have to worry about, oh, sorry, I got a better offer. You don't have to worry about, hey, boss, I know I do only enough to not get fired, but can I get a raise? My sister-in-law, brother, third cousin, Buffalo needs medical attention, something like that, right? So what you want is you want 2 or more people who are all going to win when the business wins. That's aligned incentives. That's skin in the game. And when both sides have that skin in the game, alignment replaces management. But here's the thing that most people miss, which is you can't offer equity like the same way that you offer a paycheck. It has to be structured and done the right way, which brings us to equity play and how to find and structure your first partner. So Tom.
Well, don't overcomplicate it. It's a 3-step process that we see it as. So the first one is identify the leverage gap. Ask yourself, what skill am I missing that if solved would double growth? So for developers, that's marketing distribution. For creators, product build out of something that's going to sell to their audience. Now, when you approach each other, right, you got to sell the other person on your vision. And from what I've seen, because I've had many conversations about leverage when it comes to these negotiations, the person that tells the best story wins. So the one that convinces the other better is the persuader and has the more leverage. I actually think it's probably one of the most important skills right now. Since AI can already write and do all the nonsense, like your storytelling is the thing that separates you. So step 2 is making sure the partner is complementary, right? So you got to find people already producing results. So a creator in your niche who already sells sponsored posts, or a developer with small working tools in the wild already making some money. So you're looking for proof of momentum, not potential. When you hire, the only thing you can really see is, well, hopefully based on the things that they've said they did, this is the potential that I'm buying, which usually is not that
the reality.
Yeah. So you don't want to get someone who wants to learn to code, or someone that plans to start creating content, or someone with these big visions, how they can change your business without knowing what the business is. You just want to get proof now. And the third thing is just structure for an exit, right? Like hopefully the way you design this is not that like, hey, we're just going to keep making a lifestyle business, is that we're going to make this and design it so we can sell. It's a very different thing, right? Like I think you read a whole bunch of books on how to build for exits. I think maybe you could give some pointers on this.
Yeah, I think, what's that gentleman's name? John Warrillow, I believe. He has a series of books on structuring your business to exit from the very beginning. Might have been Built to Sell, I think it's called. I have to look that up and add it in the description. But basically, the premise is, look, as the founder of the company, different people are going to give you advice over what your most important role is. Some people are like, oh, if you're a technical founder, your most important thing is ownership of the stack and the app, right? If you're a marketing founder, or a sales founder, the most important thing is you have to sell. Well, actually, as the founder, as a capitalist founder who's in this to make money, your actual greatest responsibility is to sell, except it's to sell the business, not to sell the product. Other people can sell the product for you, but only you can sell the business to investors. So you need to go in from the very first, from day one, and think, okay, how do we structure this equity deal? How do we structure this business in such a way that there is a clear path to exit in 18, in 24, in 36 months, whatever it is? Not let's see where it goes, but how do we go from here to everyone involved making a lot of money in a relatively short period of time? And part of this, we'll go into this in later episodes. It's things like having vesting in your equity. If someone decides after 2 months that they just want to ghost, to up and vanish, they don't get to keep the 50%, legally speaking, right? Equity is vested over time or when milestones are hit. And that's fair. Like, people who have skin in the game understand that, and in the beginning, you don't even need any fancy contracts or anything to get started. You just need some clarity and some documentation and agreement. And then those things will evolve and fall into place over time.
So one of the things you might have to fight with is your mindset, right? There's this weird thinking in business. People might come up to you and be like, how big is your team?
Very common question. Very common question.
Yeah. So a lot of us, not by choice, end up building these massive teams that later on we learn to hate. And I'm not even saying like how little money often that leaves you, because that's a different thing. Usually why you start to hate it, you see like, I'm doing all this work, managing all these people, getting hit from all the different directions by everyone. And yet I'm making less now than I did before when I did
working
not
more.
have this. Yeah, and working more. Right. So like another thing that people like to tell you is hire killers and leave them alone. I hear this a lot, especially on YouTube. Get these A players and then just let them be. Look, let me tell you from like the reality. 20 years in business and knowing a lot of people trying to do this. You hire these so-called killers and you leave them alone. Do it long enough, they're going to blow up your company every single time. And who's going to have to fix it up when it's down and broken and scattered? You again. And then you have these two paths, right? Am I going to do it all over again? New team, new killers I can leave alone? Or am I going to align with a couple partners, right? Because that's really the reality of it. And a lot of these specialists, look, I had a media buyer from Airbnb who did not know how to create creatives or anything, how to really manage campaigns. And I was like, okay, what did you actually do at Airbnb as a media buyer? I monitored and scaled. I was like, do you even know what those two things mean? Because I just asked you to do things which are monitoring and scaling related and you didn't know how to do them. No. So, she came in, she left the same day. Had a marketing director from a big company. Did not know anything about marketing. And I was like, what did you do at this big company that you worked for? Well, I had this team that reported to me and I did marketing. I was like, wait. So they did marketing. They reported to you on the marketing. And then I think what happened, he didn't stick around for long, but I think he compiled the results and showed it to his boss. It was a marketing director, right?
So he basically does what ChatGPT does nowadays.
Yeah. So, I don't know what he does now.
But
yeah, that was his job before, yeah. I've seen developers, I say developers with quotes, but one that didn't understand, he just introduced double headers into a WordPress site when he embedded HTML. Like, it's just super simple things, right? But these are specialists, So often when you think like, I'm going to grow this team with these specialists and like, look, if that's what you want to do, yeah, it's great. But I would recommend this book. It's called The Company of One.
Good book. I like that book.
It's great. It's super short, right?
Yeah.
Read that, get this whole big team thing out of your mind, and then be like, well, what if I can just partner up with someone, to kind of fill my weaknesses, not to try to get better at my weakness. Look, if you're a developer, you're never going to become a great creator. Like, it's just not going to happen. You don't spend enough time. It's like when you're a great creator, you will never become a great developer and build anything and want to maintain it because you just don't put the hours in.
It's a very different skill set.
Very different, yeah. So don't hire to grow faster because that's not going to happen. You want to partner to exit sooner.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about some of the things that we found out this week. So I have a couple. The first is Claude Skills recently launched. And I've started experimenting with these. And the interesting thing about this, this goes back to what we've said earlier about influencers. I think people seem to miss the point that Claude Skills let you run Python scripts and libraries. So people talk about skills replacing MCP or skills being some new magical agentic feature, but really what they were designed for is deterministic, straightforward, linear SOP style task rather than LLM generation. So, for example, if you need to have Claude pass a PDF, a skill can do that. If you need to have it, what's a skill that I have it that works? Access a YouTube channel, download the latest URLs, and update a CSV file using a Python library. That's a Claude skill, right? It's the same thing again and again and again. And that's what Claude skills are great for. People seem to be trying to use them for things that they were not designed for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. The other thing I came across this week is the mainstream media, and by mainstream media, I now mean YouTube, because everything is YouTube and television now, is starting to catch on the fact that AI is replacing people very fast. So what we have is a situation where a highly skilled person who knows how to use AI can actually now do the work of 5 people, right? And you can see this effect in big companies that are starting to lay off thousands, if not tens of thousands of people as a result of this. And one unspoken thing about this is how big of an impact it's having on countries and economies that are heavily invested in business process outsourcing. And by countries, I mean countries like the Philippines and Bangladesh, right? I think in the Philippines, BPO is like 7% of their economy, maybe 10%, something like that. It's a really big number. And all the things that these people were doing, answering customer service tickets, routing inquiries, things like that, are now being done by AI or AI agents or whatever the current version of automated workflows you want to call. All those jobs are gone because of AI, right? And what's interesting is during that same time frame, when all these jobs are disappearing in these countries, the US economy, the Chinese economy, to a lesser extent, the EU economy and the UK one, have grown because they have the infrastructure, the knowledge, the talent, and the technology to basically pull ahead with AI. And this actually reminds me of something I saw a couple of weeks ago, which was if you look at AI adoption rates across countries in the world, the developed world, the so-called first world, the advanced economies, so to speak, are just so far ahead in AI usage. A lot of people in white-collar office settings have used AI, use it on a daily basis. And then you look at the developing world, and it's like barely anyone is using it. And you got to ask yourself, why is this happening? And the reason is basically existing knowledge and existing tech infrastructure. So if you live in the United States or the United Kingdom or any English-speaking country or Western Europe, chances are you have a computer at home and you have a computer at work, which means that when you interact with ChatGPT or interact with Claude or anything, you're doing it on a desktop interface where you can drop files, you can access code and all these things. AI makes a ton of sense. But in the developing world, most people access the internet on their phone. And yes, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all these things have phone apps, but you're not going to be coding on your phone, right?
I mean,
you're not going to be doing
sort of been the sales by Claude, right? Like you can now code on your.
Let's not go into that. You know, you're not going to be doing advanced everyday business workflows on your phone. It's just the phone is just not designed for that, and that's why that economic gap between developed economies using AI and developing economies and poorer economies not being able to take advantage of it is growing. And Tom, you actually know the funny thing about this? This is the power law at work again.
Mm.
The winner takes all.
Yeah, there's a couple things like I've been looking at from that point. I mean, I do it every week, but so China has built, I think, 6 times more robots than the US already.
Mm.
You know, with AI, some sort of, you know, like, it's probably not very good yet, but again, the power law, you know, usually the one who builds more, tests more, tends to win. The US at this moment, I just looked at the startup news, is seeing a lot more growth in its SaaS-based companies than Europe and Asia. Still, like it came out pretty strong. Which I'm not sure.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
For a while we were starting to go neck and neck with some of the Asian ones. But it like Europe, it's just that's like the place that just hates itself. It seems like so they're just destroying their own economies.
It's just not a business friendly environment.
No, I mean it's like like as far as you can get. Oh yeah, did I tell you, man? Like they developed this washing machine in Europe now that to save water, it takes one cycle 9 hours to wash your clothes. I mean, yeah. I mean, when you think about this, it's just like hold on a second. But yeah,
no. I want better for you. So Tom and I are both in our 40s, and we've done international flights since we were a kid. We're very fortunate to be able to do that. But Tom, have you ever noticed that it now takes longer to fly to the same places that it used to? You ever wonder why that is?
It's been inconsistent. It hasn't been long enough because again, fortunate.
No.
When I'm sleeping,
It takes longer.
yeah. I mean, I've noticed, but again, when I'm sleeping, I usually sleep in business, so I don't care if
Yeah,
it's like an hour or
okay.
two. Yeah, but I have seen it's been inconsistent. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for it is they have a lower rate of fuel consumption to save fuel now. And that makes the planes go slower, which means flights take longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a piece of good news. I've just seen this again. They changed the name twice in the last 3 days. So Google AI Studio, 2 new image generations that supposedly work with text a little better. Like they had different names for it, but it's Image Gen 4 and Ultra right now. Might change tomorrow.
Did you say
So when you
Ultra?
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagen 4 Ultra and Imagen 4. But again, if you're watching this, it could be different now. It was different 3 days ago, but they're messing with it. So there was one that they had yesterday, but it's gone now. That helped with image consistency, but that's missing at the moment. But the good thing is like these tools are getting better, even for just normal use, like for fun things, because images are fun. Yeah.
All right, a bit of update on us and our pivot. So I am actually in Tokyo at the moment, and I'm off to Hokkaido next week on my honeymoon. And my wife and I are probably going to eventually do an episode of this show. We want to talk about the controversial topic of if you're a creator and you're a woman, why the default road leads to OnlyFans if you don't have a plan.
Makes sense
And
to
Tom,
me. Well, I mean, I don't think I have anything to beat OnlyFans. But the wife is due any
give
day
us the update.
with the baby. That's going to be an interesting day. And yeah, trying to figure out the coding framework. Look, here's what I noticed about vibe coding in general, and why I'm just not a fan. I completely just don't think of it as legit. Claude will commit crimes with your code. GPT can't always figure it out. And the one thing that you do need to understand to make this all work faster and better is you need to speak their language. And this is just normal, right? Like if you're in the marketing team, you need to speak the team marketing word. If you're with lawyers, you speak with their language. When you're with AI that is coding, you need to understand the concept and speak their language. And then it's much, much easier, right? So like with JavaScript, for example, what I noticed is when I told Claude to clean up the code, it destroyed code, right? But that was partly my fault because what I should have said is make this code more concise by doing the following, right? I could just say like, create these functions, arrow functions, create these functions, anonymous functions, and create tests to make sure they're working, right? So this was my fault in a way. But any vibe coder that comes in and starts debugging, well, they quickly realize.
What do you mean? What is this debugging that you speak of, Tom?
Debugging
code,
is
you just YOLO straight to production.
Okay, so it's debugging, but normally, here's what's happened, right? Like you code something, it doesn't work, and then you say you fix it to the AI, and this is when it just goes wild and does crazy things, right? But this fixing it is what debugging is. Like you're fixing all the stuff that wasn't built correctly in the first place. So I've been focusing on that a lot.
That goes back to what we said, which is like you're going to have 5 people being replaced by one highly skilled person who actually knows how to instruct the AI to do work.
Just one last thing, because I've been hearing this a lot, especially on LinkedIn. I have told AI to do X. It didn't do it properly, so I had to do it again and tell it to do Y. And then, okay. And therefore, AI doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, you do know you can chain AIs, right? So if you know that AI 1 typically will not get these things right, you can build AI 2 with the correction mechanisms, which you already know, because you're the expert, to fix those things, then pass it on and get the output that you want. And if it still doesn't come, you can build a third AI to fix that. You know what I mean? I think what people are really, I think the marketing is what did it. Marketing is trying to make you feel like there's going to be this one AI that just does everything.
That you just push a button and it literally reads your mind. It does everything.
And there's not. But you can build 3 or 4 that, yes, they can do exactly what you're doing every single time. Nuance, small difference, but yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up on hiring. Take it away, Tom.
So in conclusion, hiring early is the #1 startup killer after no market need. Founders waste 5 to 7 months and 30% of runway on failed hires. Equity partners are 3 times more likely to reach profitability without funding. If you can't afford a bad hire, don't make one. Trade equity instead. And subscribe to this channel.
See you guys in the next one.